We have a massive update today on Letitia James and her mortgage fraud investigation. She is officially lawyered up, and things are getting wild. We're going to dig deep into the letter that her lawyer sent to Pam Bondi, the evidence or lack of it, and why this is not looking good for her at all. Welcome back to Cozy Francis. Please subscribe if you are new. So, Letitia James has hired an attorney to defend her against the mounting mortgage fraud allegations, and her new lawyer, Abby David Lowell, has submitted a letter directly to U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. Now, if you're thinking this is a strong, confident move, you better think again because this letter reads more like a political pity party. Woe is me, rather than a real legal defense. We're going to walk through that letter and the evidence they provided. I will attach it for you so you can read it on your own. But this seems to be a desperate PR stunt, and it looks like Letitia James may just be in hot water. First off, Letitia's attorney sent this 5-page letter to Pam Bondi, and immediately it's filled with accusations that the investigation is nothing more than political retribution orchestrated by Donald Trump. I hope I don't bore y'all with this letter, but I'm going to read some parts of it, the really important parts, and be sure that you read it on your own. If you want to read every single word of it, I will link it for you. The letter literally starts by calling Trump's involvement stunning hypocrisy, and claims that Trump is doing exactly what he once accused others of doing, weaponizing the Department of Justice for political payback. The lawyer even quoted Trump's speeches, like when he said, "I am your warrior. I am your justice. I am your retribution." So, basically, they feel like this is just Trump going after her, and there's nothing to see here. But the problem with the whole letter is that it basically just cherry-picked quotes. It's very emotionally appealing and doesn't actually address the specific legal evidence of fraud. It's a giant PR move, just try and make Letitia James look like a victim, but not actually disproving the allegations against her. It's just, woe is me, I'm a black woman. How dare you guys? How dare you guys try to come for me? I am just a black woman doing the best that I can. So, what are the allegations? Let's get into this letter. There's a section that says baseless allegations. Director PY's letter, based on media reports, raises 3 issues. 1. One reference out an entire file of documents to a property in Virginia being Miss James' principal residence. 2. One 24-year-old document among a pile of others defining a Brooklyn property as having 5 dwellings when the loan in question called for only 4. 3. 2 decades-old references, one 42 years old and the other 24 years old, to documents filled out by Mrs. James' deceased father, where he either checked the wrong box or misstated his relationship with Miss James to be spousal rather than parental. And I will address each one in turn. Yikes. Now, I ain't never mistakenly called my dad my husband, and vice versa. That's just crazy. In 2023, Miss James assisted her niece, Shamise Thompson Harriston, who needed financial support with a down payment to purchase a home in Norfolk, Virginia. The mortgage application required only one individual to live at the property. Director PY cherry-picked an August 17, 2023, power of attorney that mistakenly stated the property to be Miss James' principal residence, and at the same time absolutely ignored her very clear and all-cap statements 2 weeks earlier to the mortgage loan broker that this property will not be my primary residence. It will be Shami's primary residence. The broker understood this, and Miss James was not a Virginia resident. The broker replied, "Section 4 indicates that the property will be occupied as a primary residence for Shami's. Your declaration is marked as a non-occupying co-borrower." So, to summarize, Letitia helped her niece buy a house in Norfolk, Virginia. On the mortgage paperwork, James allegedly declared that the property would be her primary residence, which would qualify her niece for lower interest rates. What's her defense? That she clearly stated in an email 2 weeks earlier that she wouldn't be occupying this residence. She would not be living there. The problem is, you cannot clear up mortgage fraud by sending an email. The application itself is a legal document, and that document said she would, in fact, be living there. That is why it's fraud. So, basically, to help her niece get better mortgage rates, she's like, "Oh, yeah, sure, I'm going to go on this property. We'll just put that I'm going to be living there." And then she changed her mind and said, "Oh, I want to be a good person." So, Actually, by the way, let me email you stating that I will not, in fact, be living there because only my niece is going to be living there. What? That's fraud. Let's move on to the Brooklyn property and what he says about that. He writes, in 2001, Miss James purchased a Brooklyn, New York, home with her savings to facilitate supporting her mother, who was sick at the time. What does that have even to do with anything? And give other family members a place to live. Miss James and her family members had lived there since 2001. The co-occupancy dwelling has 4 floors, and for as long as Miss James has lived there, the property has always functioned as a 4-person residence. Additionally, Miss James' mother lived on the 1st floor. Miss James occupied the 2nd floor. A close family friend occupied the 3rd floor, and her brother occupied the 4th floor. The basement did not have any units after Mrs. James' mother died, and to this day, Miss James has occupied the 1st and 2nd floor units for herself, while her close family friend and brother occupied 2 units on the top floor. Director P.Y. points to a 24-year-old certificate of occupancy listing the property as having 5 units, despite the property having functioned as a 4-unit residence for the past 24 years since Miss James bought it. In fact, a document he is well aware of, the August 23, 2011 Home Affordable Modification Program application, confirms it as being a 4-unit property. Worse yet, Director P.Y. ignores altogether the other New York City records that list the Brooklyn property as a 4-unit property, including the NYC Department of Finance property record listing the Brooklyn property's building class as C3 for families, for tax purposes. First of all, that is a lot. Okay, that was a mouthful. But to put it simply, her Brooklyn home was classified as a 5-unit dwelling back in 2001, but for mortgage and tax purposes, she claimed that it was a 4-unit dwelling to avoid commercial property rates. Do you understand that you can have 4 floors, you can have 4 units? It's still considered residential, but as soon as you get a 5, it is now commercial? So, she said she was just going to avoid having to deal with all that together. Let me just say it's 4. Her defense is, well, we've always used it as a 4-unit home. What's the issue here? Shoot, if I don't go down to the basement, then the basement don't exist. The problem is, it doesn't matter how you treat the property personally. Legally, if it is 5 units, it's classified differently. So, you're not going to basement. You're not using the basement. You're thinking it's just 4 because you guys only use 4 other units. It is still a 5-unit property. When did this change? That is fraud. He also goes on to address the father-daughter spousal situation, which is just utterly ridiculous. He states in 1983, Mrs. James' father, Robert James, sought to buy a home for his family in the Jamaican neighborhood of Queens, New York. He asked his daughter, then a few years out of school, what does that have to do with anything? She was out of school. She still knew how to read, to help by allowing him to add her name to the mortgage application. Mr. James filled out the mortgage material, wherein he described a relationship as being spouses, and purchased a home without his daughter's involvement. Yet, in a predictable pattern here, Director P.Y. cites a mistaken May 20th, 1983, document Mr. James filled out to cast as baseless allegations, while again ignoring the other supporting documentation, one on the same exact date that correctly describes Mrs. James, Miss James, as being his daughter. The actual May 20th, 1983, property deed for the Jamaica Queens residence lists Robert James and Letitia James, his daughter. So, the Queens property, way back in 1983, Letitia James was added to her father's mortgage application as a spouse instead of a daughter. Her defense is, oops, it was a mistake. Her deceased father allegedly checked the wrong box. He didn't mean to do it. Okay, but even if that were true, she still signed it. That's a material misrepresentation on a mortgage document. Intentional or not, it's still fraud. It still happened. She was supposed to do her due diligence and read through it to make sure that it was filled out correctly. Abiel finished off his letter to Pam Bondi stating, if there is anything that you believe that I have not addressed in the real facts and documents provided, please let me know. Otherwise, we would expect a quick response confirming that this referral matter has been closed by the department. Signed, sincerely, Abby David LOL. So basically, he just sent you some facts, what he believes are facts, and said, Shut this thing down. Make it disappear. Make it go away. Letitia's attorney also attached a bunch of exhibits that are supposed to prove her innocent. Exhibit A is the emails about the Virginia property stating it wasn't her primary residence. Because remember, she emailed them 2 weeks before. But again, these came after she had already filled out official loan documents. Exhibit B in the attached documents are recent 2024 and 2025 tax documents showing that the Brooklyn property is classified as a 4-unit residence, after she likely cleaned up a little bit just recently. Then there's Exhibit C, New York City records showing the Brooklyn property is 4 families today, but with no historical documents explaining how or when the classification changed. The bottom line is these exhibits don't disprove the fraud allegations. They actually confirm that, at best, she scrambled afterward to cover her tracks. They offer no explanation for the original false filings. It's technically just a cleanup job. It's not a real defense here. And y'all, the letter to Pam Bondi is laughable. Like, instead of confronting the accusations head-on, it just repeats political retribution over and over and over, hoping that Pam Bondi will just back off and be like, oh, nope, let's just leave her alone. She already stated that it's not true. Pam Bondi is not going to back off. In fact, this letter probably enraged her even more because it's an insult to suggest that serious mortgage fraud allegations should be ignored just because of politics or the fact that you're the AG. So you're important. Just leave me alone. Let me be. This was in the past. Also, her new lawyer, Abby David O. Yeah, he's the same guy who represented Hunter Biden. You just can't make that stuff up. Meanwhile, forensic accountant Sam Anner, a Democrat by the way, has been pulling all the records. He found that Letitia James' filings were riddled with inconsistencies going back decades. He's called it a slam dunk case, saying that if he had a lawyer like Abby L.O. back in the day, he'd still be sitting in jail today, 25 to 35 years later. Take a listen. You're a forensic accountant. You told me just before during the break that you're a convicted felon. You've had your own issues with the law, right? Yes. And I learned both sides of the law. Exactly. I learned every trick of the book from when I was a criminal, and I learned every trick in the book after I stopped being a criminal. So, I was following you on X Twitter, and I saw you started posting about Letitia James and all these mortgage fraud allegations and all of the documents that you're pulling up. This is what any other person could get. When you started peeling back the onion and realizing, oh my goodness, I can't believe that our Attorney General is doing exactly what she accused President Trump of doing and tried to put him behind bars for. She's guilty of it as well. What was going through your mind and how did it all start? Well, first of all, I didn't target her. I've been writing about New York City finances and politicians for quite a while, and I ventured onto her. She was just another name on the list. But what I saw was really magnifying red flags I didn't see anywhere else. That made me look into her more deeply. She was spending exorbitantly on her campaigns. She even used private jets on the government's dime, overlapping periods when she was campaigning for campaign events. And of course, we have the issues of her financial disclosures to New York State and her mortgage situation. But one thing about Abiello, she should get a better lawyer. He's really not that bright. I read his letter to the State Department. It was full of innuendo. Let's put it this way. If Abiello was defending me, I wouldn't be here. I'd still be in prison 35 years later. I think both Democrats and Republicans just want the truth. Everyone should be held accountable for their actions, regardless of who they are. And Letitia James said it best. No one is above the law. No matter how rich, powerful, or politically connected you are, everyone must play by the same rules. As I've said before, no one is above the law, and I will not hesitate to uphold the rule of law and protect New Yorkers. But to make matters worse for Tish, there's now pressure mounting to get an indictment soon. Everyone's waiting for Pam Bondi and the DOJ to move forward. Guys, Letitia James is cooked. Like the kids say, this letter proves nothing except how desperate her team is. Like, I am not happy that this is happening to her. It's actually quite sad, but the hypocrisy is way too loud. If you made it your mission to go after someone for the same fraud allegations that you are now facing, well, you reap what you sow. Let me know in the comments. Should Letitia James be indicted, Are you shocked at how weak her defense actually is? Like, what did they say here? They said a bunch of nothing. Anyways, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss the next update. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.